Welcome back to A Numbers Game with Ryan Girdusky. So we are headed towards the middle of Trump's first 100 days in office. It's a big part of his agenda so far has been getting his cabinet confirmed, which is the very first part of every kind of administration's agenda. While some of his team, like Marco Rubio, have sailed through the confirmation, he was confirmed 99-0. Some of Team Trump's toughest challenges lay ahead of him when it comes to confirmation. And that's the confirmation of the former Democrats. That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tulsi Gabbard for the Director of National Intelligence, and Kash Patel for FBI Director. I'm not exactly sure if Kash was officially a Democrat, but he got his start in the Obama administration's Justice Department back in 2014. So that's why I'm including him. It looks like that none of these people, despite being former Democrats or affiliated with Democratic past administrations, are going to receive much of any support from Senate Democrats who have given their support to other ones of Trump's nominees like Senator Rubio. The only remaining Trump pick who looks like they're going to receive any substantial support from the Democrats is Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeMuro. She was a former congressman from Oregon who actually had a number of Republicans openly opposing her because she's so pro-union. But back to Patel, Gabbard, and RFK. It looks like all three may get through, but just by the Pete Hegseth margin of 50-50, where Pete received 50 Republican votes and then Vice President J.D. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote in his favor. They all have a bit of controversy in their background. After 2020, Patel got very close to conspiracy theorists with the 2020 election, and then after that, pretty close to some QAnon people, said some very kind of out there things. Then there's RFK, who has got more stories than Mother Goose. He had a lot of questionings about vaccines that he's backed away from. He had the conversation where he brought a dead bear to Central Park. He had a brain worm. He had a very, very ugly divorce from his first wife that unfortunately ended with her taking her own life. And there's a lot of pushback from the more religious wing of the GOP because of his positions on abortion, which are very, very pro-choice. And then lastly, the person I want to focus on today is Tulsi Gabbard. A lot of the hawkish wing of the GOP has opposed her primarily because of her positions on Edward Snowden, which Edward Snowden was an American who worked for the administrative state or the deep state, who found during that Obama's presidency, the American government was spying on every American, and he leaked that information to a news outlet and had to then flee to Russia. And Tulsi and many people have wanted him assassinated. Many politicians have wanted him assassinated. And Tulsi does not have that same position against Snowden that a lot of politicians do. And then she had a meeting with former Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad many years ago, who's no longer in power. These two stories are not relevant towards today. Al-Assad is obviously no longer in power in Syria, and Edward Snowden is something that happened over a decade ago. But the margin of error for Republicans is very thin, with three Republicans basically hinting they're going to oppose all of Trump's nominees, that being McConnell, Murkowski, and Curtis. McConnell from Kentucky, Murkowski from Alaska, and Curtis from Utah. It's a 50-50 majority for these three people. It looks like they're all going to get in, but by the skin of their teeth with absolutely no margin of error. And it's Tulsi in particular that is important and is interesting because what she represents is a departure from Bush-era Republicanism, Bush-era neoconservatism. Sort of the way that J.D. Vance did, and he received a lot of pushback when he was running for Senate in 2022, but Tulsi is made it so central to her identity. She is a veteran. She has served in the military in war zones as a medic. She has been in Iraq, I think, and Afghanistan, but I think definitely one or the other. And she has seen the toll of forever wars in a way that many members of Congress who have voted for these wars have never seen it. So her nomination, her being confirmed, is a departure from a Republican Party that many people have been looking to get past for quite a long time. My guest this week has been fighting for Tulsi's nomination for weeks now, appearing everywhere in the media to tell centrist Republicans why they should support her. So we'll be back with Meghan McCain after these messages. My guest this week is the host of the fantastic podcast, Citizen McCain, who was actually my number one podcast of last year that I listened to. And and she has a great Substack, meganmccain.substack.com. Meghan McCain. Megan, you've had a very...
Ryan.
Yeah, we're very good friends. I know I don't want to introduce that, but yeah, we're good friends.
Anyway, sorry.
So, Megan, you've had like a super busy few weeks. You've had a media renaissance over Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation, and it looks like she's finally over the hump after a lot of bumpy roads. What has it been like on the inside as far as the anticipation whether or not she could be confirmed?
So I never lost. I always thought she was going to be confirmed, which you can attest to. Like I was always like I felt like people were like gaslighting me that it wasn't going to happen. And a lot of people were like, oh, you got to sacrifice someone. And it's obviously going to be the woman because like we need less women. And like I'm not normal. And I feel like because, like for people that don't know background, we're good friends. Because I'm around her so much and I'm around her in public spaces where I have been able to see how people react to her. I don't think people were really aware of just her huge following and her grassroots support among like a very interesting demographic of American voters. So I never like thought it wouldn't happen, but I did like have to pull my fangs out a little bit and really like use some of my like experience growing up in around political circles to like throw threats out, which I normally don't do, but I felt like it was warranted in that situation. And I just felt like there's a lot of senators that need reminding that this coalition is a broad one and it goes way beyond like Bush era politics that I think are like long gone. And this is a long-winded answer, but I wasn't worried about it, but like I went on a podcast with Sean Spicer and Mark Halperin and Dan Turrentine the day after the hearing, and Sean was like, he straight up said she's disqualified, and we had a debate about it. He did not like her answer on Snowden, and he said it was completely disqualifying, and we had a debate about it. We didn't like yell or anything, but we had a debate about it, and it's been a really interesting experience just from the politics of it, but she's, getting confirmed. I don't know when this airs, but she's getting confirmed this week.
It will be due on Tuesday. So I think the last few senators who were opposing her, I mean, Murkowski may probably oppose her and maybe McConnell and Curtis, but the number needed have basically all fallen by the wayside, which were Senator Young from Indiana, Senator Langford from Oklahoma. They've come out in support of her. Senator Collins was an fairly early supporter, for her as far as the moderate senators go. And Collins is in a much tougher reelection bid than anybody else if you would consider her being controversial. The internal argument, first of all, Tulsi's evolution. Do you think, knowing her, that she's had an internal evolution since you first met her when it comes to politics, having now being a Republican from being a Democrat?
Yeah, when I first met her, she was obviously a Democrat. She was running for president. It was like right before she was running for president against, in the Democrat coalition. And she kind of, I think, experienced very similar things that I did, which, like it's obviously mine's dissimilar because I was working in media, but in politics, like if you're just screamed at because you want basic things, you like are patriotic and you love America, and like you're religious and you love God, and you like love our military, and you're like abused publicly of it, it will change your perspective on the world. And I think, honestly, Democrats have just gotten so progressive and so radical that she's not like that at all. So I think her evolution was very natural, and I sort of got to see it in real time. Yeah,
I think it's also funny when you have a Democrat friend who, as an adult, starts becoming a Republican. Like they start dropping these little like nuggets where you're like, that's an interesting comment you made. Let me internalize that for a second. I think
so many friends like this, by the way, especially in the past post-COVID time, and people that I like love dearly who are like the most red-pilled, I like, not to like give a shout out, my friend Nate, who lives in Virginia Beach, who I love, that we used to live in New York together, has made this like complete evolution and is now like even more conservative than I am. And it's definitely anecdotally in my life. Yeah. I don't think Democrats understand the grave disaster of like generational disaster COVID did to an entire group of people in this country.
I have a friend who is a former Democrat who just had a Thomas Sowell book with them. I go, how did you hear about Thomas Sowell? Like, I know how I know about him, but how did you hear about him? It's super interesting when that happened. I think a turning point for Tulsi, especially in relation to the media, was when she went after and destroyed Kamala Harris's first bid for the presidency during the debate. That ended Kamala Harris's entire bid, and that kind of fundamentally altered everyone's in the media's relation with them. You worked in the media for years. Did you start noticing how did people talk about her like regular Democrats? Was that she was, out to pasture at that point?
I specifically remember like at The View, that when she originally came on, it was like a much friendlier place for her. Like people were just much more, I think liked her a lot more. And then I remember she came on, I think it was before that or after that. I don't remember, like around that time when she had, shivved Vice President Harris on stage. And there was definitely a shift of like questioning just like if her loyalty to the party and,
Right.
things like that. And, one of the things we've always bonded over is having like really insane stereotypes and perceptions of us in the media.
I've met Tulsi in person, I think twice. She's extremely stoic. She has the best posture I've ever met on a single person. I mean, considering my posture's horrendous, I'm like, wow, you're always standing up straight. What?
Everything.
She does. She's got great I think I notice those things about people. Like people who've got great teeth or great posture. I'm like, oh wow, that's really, I got to learn how to stand up straight more often. Do you think that her misinterpretation from her career in the military, I guess the word that people in the media say about women, she's icy. Do you think that
people say that about me too, or they have?
Yeah, they've said that about you too. Do you think that that's where it is? It's just that you're not Jenna Bush. Not that anything wrong with her, but like it's not. You're not the morning news personality of like a bubbly woman, and that has created being a woman definitely creates the perception of being icy. I don't think that her personality is much of than Mike Waltz's. Is it a personality thing or is it a position?
I think just to be a strong woman, people will call you icy or call you a bitch. And I actually think that image of her has really changed a lot. I think people have gotten to know her a lot more. She's done a lot more personal interviews like on Joe Rogan and me and things.
And on your podcast. It was great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And by the way, I feel weird that I'm not her spokesperson and I'm not like, it's like we're just good friends. And I think people are just curious about why, because, I think on paper it probably looks weird. She's vegan. She exercises every day. Like, I am not vegan. I don't exercise every day. Like she leads a different, much healthier lifestyle than I do. But the core of who we are is very similar.
Yeah. And I think that people just assume you would always be like pro war or they probably call you a neocon or whatever. And it's obviously partially because of the background of, how your dad voted on a lot of things, but also I think because, and I want to ask you about this specifically, the media is default pro-war. Like the Iraq War, there was no voices in the mainstream media opposing that back 20 years ago. There was, the only day that Donald Trump got positive coverage on MSNBC in his entire first term was the day that he struck Syria after the gas attack. Mm-hmm. He got wall-to-wall positive coverage. The Afghanistan withdrawal of Biden was a disaster, but it was panned. The idea was panned even more so. I think that and you could disagree with me, I think part of Tulsi's pushback is if you are even anything opposed to either the intelligence community or the war community, you are problematic in their eyes. I
also think one of the things that became really, from the experience of physically attending the hearing with her, one of the things that I became acutely aware of is I was like, oh my God, a lot of these people, I would say probably like 75% of the senators asking her questions, I was like, they clearly don't know a war-weary Iraq and Afghanistan veteran. They are obviously surrounded by like, at least on the Republican side, like the Bush era coalition of people, especially in regards to foreign policy, is actually still quite strong in DC.
Super strong.
I don't know if people like know that, but they actually, despite the fact that Bush was president when I was in high school, but it is, I think that they are not aware that even for me, the tenor and tone of the country and the country's attitude towards war has shifted. And you don't need to, take my word for it. Look at Trump and look at data and polling. And I think, especially just like anecdotally in my life, two of my brothers, did multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. My one brother, Jimmy, enlisted when he was 16. My parents had to sign like a form that he could go in the army that young. I'll never forget the first day when I said goodbye to him when he deployed to Iraq the first time. It was horrific. And, even for like my brother, Jimmy, like he's very isolationist-y, and he wouldn't mind me saying it. I've asked him in the past if he minds me like sharing that. And like my brother-in-law, who has done many tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, is still serving. Like It doesn't feel like very aligned with Tulsi. And I think the thing that some of these older generation of politicians don't understand is there's a lot of people in this country, if you served or didn't, that were lied to about weapons of mass destruction, that have been given ample reasons not to trust the government in a post-COVID time. I stopped trusting. I was a lot more trusting and like naive about the government and people running it pre-COVID than I am after. Now, I mean, I am like, probably more conspiratorial than people better than anyone, and very defiant about like, I do not trust these people.
Well, I think Tulsi's opinions also line up with another veteran, which is JD Vance. I think that you have, I think for millennials,
one thing, like she's also like a big supporter of Israel, and like at post October 7th, like went to the Israel march with me, and like understands that there are situations where like you should be supporting different countries and different situations. Like,
right.
I think there's this like image of her like a Bond villain, like it's just for no circumstances ever. And I think people just aren't really nuanced enough to read or listen to all her thoughts and perspectives.
Right. And I don't want to paint her a picture as a complete.
You.
No, I know that. I don't want to. Yeah, that's important not to paint her a picture as an isolationist. I mean, but there are some senators where if you give them 5 minutes to tell them why we should invade Mongolia, they would be 100% for it. Like there are some people who be for literally any single.
I think Lindsey Graham would probably invade Canada given the right reason.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's 100% the truth. Where they would,
pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, where they would be like, yeah, military ships in Greenland, let's go for it. And there's no war. You would have to spend more time convincing them against a war than convince them for a war. And I think that if you have the experience of being in a war zone, especially, I think, didn't Tulsi, she was a medic, right? She was a medic in the war zone. So she probably saw people die. And that probably really shapes your opinion on how the people, what's the old quote? Old men who vote for wars that young men go to, something like that. Mm-hmm. I think that probably definitely forms your opinion. When it comes to the position of national intelligence, why do you think the intelligence community fears her, and why do you think that she'd be perfect for the job?
Because I think they know that she's going to root out corruption the way that Doge is doing, even though you can like have your opinions on like Elon's role, which is totally fine. But I think the one thing that President Trump has made clear, and his coalition and his cabinet has made clear to me, is like, this is a time of extreme change. Americans want extreme change. I felt like I really would not have survived another 4 years, or the country wouldn't have survived another 4 years with Kamala's leadership, because we're just like drowning in so many different ways. And I think the intelligence community is aware that she's in some ways an outsider, in other ways not, just given her history and background in the military and in Congress. I also candidly, I think there's an element of sexism in this, which is not something I throw around easily at all. The fact that, these Congress people were calling her Tulsi instead of Lieutenant Colonel or Congresswoman, I found offensive. You're just not going to call like Kash Patel Cash in a hearing.
Which is the name of his coin, I think, is the Cash coin. I'm not joking. Yeah.
And I think she would be really good at the job because I just know from being around her so much, she takes like the national security of this country to heart and to bed with her at night. Like she's, deeply fearful of our enemies. She knows who they are. She is very, very patriotic and committed, and she's going to work her ass off. And I legitimately believe that she will make this country safer. I was telling her in person, I don't think she'd mind me sharing this with you. Like, I love going to New Orleans. It's one of my favorite cities. I'm like pretty scared to go to Bourbon Street now since the terror attack in January.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I'm, I don't live in a place of fear, but like I'm more uncomfortable than I used to be. Even every time I go to a big concert, even sometimes a movie theater, like, yeah. So I just think she's committed in a way that I just don't think other people would be, to rooting out corruption and getting to the bottom of.
Yeah, I mean, I know from my personal experience, I do not go see big movies on the opening weekends. I haven't since the Joker shooting. I don't really love outdoor concerts since the Vegas shooting. And I mean, I'm in New Orleans right now, so I'm not really afraid of New Orleans. But the thing is like, I just don't understand why every time we have a terrorist attack or a lone wolf attack, we hear afterwards, oh, this person was on our intelligence community's watch list. Well, how did they get a gun or a bomb? Like, did no one do a follow up? Why weren't we that is the one thing I never understand. few of my friends among like Ryan, the intelligence community is basically people who read the newspaper and tell you what was in the news. Like these are not like insanely active, a network of FBI agents taking down the Soviet Union anymore. One person on Twitter said we have to confirm Tulsi, and then she has to make sure spies are hot again.
I'm sorry to disappoint that. I don't think that's a priority.
Which was hysterically funny. When it comes to like the media apparatus, because you worked for Fox, ABC, and I think one other one, right?
MSNBC.
MSNBC, yeah.
iHeartRadio. Got a long roster behind me of working in spaces.
You said oftentimes that, like, you said about, especially about ABC, like there's no one there who likes Republicans.
Not one.
Yeah.
Not one.
If you're,
I encountered in the almost 4.5 years I was there.
Yeah, I mean, since Trump won, the left seems very defeated. I mean, I've never seen the left kind of like this, where they don't really have a coherent message. You have like Maxine Waters or Chuck Schumer like raising their canes in the air as they're like
that image is just really
and they don't like what Chuck Schumer said, the American public has never been more aroused than it is right now. I mean, they don't have a coherent leader, a message, or even like a chant that they could sit there and rally around. It seems to be going in the media as well, as far as the reaction towards Trump, where it almost looks like a surrender. Do you think that the media getting it very, very wrong and getting the appetite of the public so wrong in 2024 changes anything?
Look, the ratings for CNN, I mean, I don't remember the exact show, but it's like reruns of Jeopardy at 3 a.m. get better than their, I may be mixing up what show it is, but it's like, when as many people are watching my Instagram stories as your morning show, like I think there's an issue.
Yeah.
I don't trust any of these networks. I do still watch Fox, and my husband works for them, but obviously
their ratings are through the roof.
So, do what you want. And I don't include them in this analysis, but I think that, just from my personal experience, it's not just that they don't care about understanding how 55% of the American public lives, it's that they have a disdain for it. And I think when you see like Margaret Brennan's attitude and behavior and body language when she's interviewing JD Vance and then like screaming about how Republicans aren't going to fix the price of bacon, like you probably live in a multi-million-dollar place, someplace in the Beltway, and I would love to know how many like normal Americans she's speaking to, because it didn't come off like a lot. And I think, look, I just done maybe this makes me like a masochist or gross person or something, or not a masochist, a sadist. I really love this moment. Like, I love that everybody that's been so disgusting to conservatives is like drowning and having a hard time. And, not to like give you TMI, but like I've had quite a few people reach out to me wanting to do interviews with lots of different friends of mine, not just Tulsi, and I'm not helping them.
Yeah.
Nothing but crap all over me and people like me for years. Like, I've basically been called an extremist and a radical, particularly the past.
And those are the nice words.
Exactly. You guys are drowning in this. You can figure out how to get your way out of it now. I'm not going to help you.
You're listening to It's a Numbers Game with Ryan Girdusky. We'll be right back after this message. What is amazing to me is that it wasn't like they bought in on progressive ideas on things that no one believes in, going into like the transgenderism argument for like minors. Like every leftist argument they believed like wholesale. There was nothing that they pushed back on for years. I mean, the New York Times only recently started being like, hey, bunch of studies that transgenderism in children is not really not transgender, but transgender surgery in children is not really wonderful, and these drugs are not great for minors or 12 years old. That took like 6-7 years to come out. Like they did not have a single voice in the woods to say, hey, like there was no diversity of opinion whatsoever. And I know like the LA Times is hiring somebody right now, but I haven't seen, any kind of come to Jesus moment on any of these networks as far as like this big reshuffle. I mean, they're having these openings now. These people are leaving, but I can't imagine an open conservative taking any of these jobs.
Well, that's part of the problem. Is it's not that they just are maybe not offering. Like, I've had many offers since I left The View, and I will never, ever work in cable news. I did not have, I'm not including Fox, but I'm not working at Fox, nor planning on it. But I would never work in there's nothing. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of, because it doesn't matter if you're the token person. It matters that like the producers and the network and the hosts and everybody just wants to railroad you. And you're this person that's just going to sit there and get screamed at. I mean, I think that man that is on CNN does a great job. I'm sorry, I forgot his name because I don't watch CNN, but there's like a token.
Scott Jennings.
Scott Jennings. Yes. The clips I see of him, he does like a very great job, but like, I don't know if I can swear on this. Like, who the fuck wants to do that every day?
I was at Jim Banks' inauguration, and I saw Scott there, and I looked at Jim afterwards, and I Senator Jim Banks from Indiana. And I said, "Wow, I thought I was going to be the most famous person who was on CNN in this room right now, but that did not happen." And his producer from CNN actually emailed me yesterday, said, "Would you come on our network?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, I think I'm banned for life from your network. I don't think I can come on your network. But
you should, badge of honor.
I was like, you probably should reach out to your higher ups to see if I'm allowed to come on. And then they never replied to me. So I don't
know what's worth whenever they, and again, I'm not trying to have like a struggle session about how much we hate CNN, but like they've done this to themselves. Like they've asked me to come on quite a bit in the last year. And I always say no, because it's just really not worth my time for a lot of different reasons. And I'm shocked that they keep asking. Like, yeah. I'm not interested in going on with like, you know, and I feel bad because they have friends that work at CNN who are really nice people. But I think
how many times can you be called a racist is like the question. Like how, like that is the honest to God question. Whenever I did CNN, the way it works in cable news is you get a email from the producers a few hours before the show with all the topics that you're going to be covering on it. Like when we did Abby Phillips, it was an hour worth of topics. And then about 45 minutes before you go on set, they change every topic and all the research you've done is completely. And then every question is like the first question. So Republicans are racist. Second question, follow-up thing. Why are Republicans so racist? And you have to sit there and defend and make an argument the entire time. And there's some really good, listen, Van Jones was always a pleasure to work with. A lot of other people. That woman, Allison, who's having a nervous breakdown on CNN that she was never paid enough and she has 2 bachelor's degrees. She was never a nice person to be around. So, I mean, I guess it's the person. But what is this moment like for you, being somebody who was critical of Trump for so long and for personal reasons, and I think for philosophical positions? There's a lot to like about this moment right now with the Trump administration. Is there, and you're not like a MAGA Republican, although that's your new brand that they're titling you with.
I don't think MAGA people think that about me, though. I think maybe
they're warmed up to you a lot.
Left-wing people probably think that, but I don't think MAGA people think that.
Yeah, but what is this moment like for you as somebody who was critical of him but kind of likes what he does?
So obviously there's personal baggage.
Right, of course.
Over 10 years old that, you know, what's so funny is even like the most ardent Trump supporters are like, if somebody said that about my family, I'd feel the same way you did.
Right.
Like people tend to give me a pass. And also I know polling wise, Trump's criticism of my dad and the Khan family is one of the few things that ever made his support drop with his base, whatever that's worth. Like, people don't like it. But it's very old. And I, you know me, like, I'm a pretty religious person. I'm a very spiritual person. And my relationship with God is very important to me. And forgiveness is a big part of my life. And I've forgiven Trump for me. I didn't forgive him for him. I've forgiven him a long time ago because for me, I just want to be a happy person and live a happy life. And it's just like, for me, I have let this go a long time ago. But I, like everybody else, I've experienced, you know, like all the stuff everybody else did, I did too. During COVID, post-COVID, the culture war stuff, the political stuff, like Biden was just drowning this country on many different levels. And I think just like holistically having this like decrepit old man whose brain was mashed potatoes leading the country was a very scary experience. It's true. I've said that numerous times. I stand by that. His brain's mashed potatoes. And I don't care what I mean.
I love how, by the way, can you just say for 1 second, you like the Bidens were never your like godparents. Like there was this image that they were their best friend.
The Bidens were friends with my parents when they were younger, when they were like, you know, when they first met in like, the late 70s. And then obviously when my dad was very sick, President Biden's son, Beau, died of the same brain cancer my dad did. And he was very kind to us during that process. I would never say different. He was lovely. I think he was a very different person then than he is now, for whatever that's worth. And then my personal backstory is they asked me to endorse him during the convention when he was nominated. And I said no, because I'm a Republican. And, you know, like I didn't I honestly, like, his choice of Kamala, I found so petrifying that, like, it scared me so much. I was like, I could never do anything like this. And just like, I'm not a Democrat. And when I said no, they never spoke to me again.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
like,
Well, people need to know that because people have this interpretation that you guys were like vacationing every summer together.
I don't think I've ever even actually been to Delaware. Driving through on an Amtrak. Like,
That's funny. So yeah, but I think that for a lot of people who didn't like full out leave the party and join the Lincoln Project in the last 8 years, they're like Trump's doing a good job. Like they can openly sit there and say Trump is doing a good job. I was talking to I did a speech yesterday in California, and they were asking me like, "Well, I feel this person or that person." I said, "I like them enough. Like they're politicians. I'm not." Gonna be like, I like them enough until I don't like them. But I think that a lot of Republicans who didn't go along with Trump for the first 8 years are at that point with him right now saying, I like him enough. Like he's good enough right now.
Again, like character wise, it's just not,
right.
Like whatever. But
I'm talking about policy in the White House.
I mean, policy wise, I'm thrilled. I'm like, not to be like gross or whatever, but like I'm having a great time right now. I mean, not to be like whatever, but like everything I said was going to happen and got screamed at and harassed and abused, in lots of different spaces has come true. And everybody I don't like looks like a moron because they got everything wrong. And this really is like a renaissance for conservatism. And, to be someone who has been like a lifelong conservative on TV for so long talking about it, and to have this moment where we're cool and popular and culturally cool. And, I can now, like, I have 2 young girls, as you know, and I can send them to my eldest daughter is a really incredible swimmer. Like she's 4 years old and she loves it. She's very good. She's already in advanced classes. It's definitely going to be her sport. And like, I'm not going to lie, like seeing Leah Thomas really freaked me out about her continuing in this sport. And now that like Trump signed all of this, and now I know that like she can compete against other girls. Like it's awesome. Like I love it. Like I am so happy. And honestly, like Tulsi's inclusion in the cabinet to me is like even just metaphorically and RFK's as well is an olive branch to, I think I'm probably more like in their space politically. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably more conservative than they are, but like definitely.
Yeah, I think you're definitely more concerned than RFK is, but I think that you have concerns over our food supply. Like,
oh my God, I'm so excited for red dye to be banned and stuff. And I'm really excited. Like right now, I choose to be optimistic, and I really genuinely feel excited about things. And I can table my personal feelings about Trump, but I don't even because I don't hate him. I just have personal feud from a long time ago for what he did to my dad. But I also think I think the thing the media sort of underestimates is like I don't care anymore, and I don't think they care anymore. I think this is old news from the past, and that doesn't mean I'm going to be hanging out at Mar-a-Lago or anything. It just means that I'm very happy with the policy and cabinet decisions. I really love a ton of his cabinet choices, and I really feel much safer right now.
Yeah, there's a I can't describe, but it is a feeling in the air. And just one last point about a cultural change. I was give a speech in downtown LA yesterday, and as I'm peeling out of the event space, I see this young tall black guy with a giant Trump 2024 hoodie on in downtown LA. Like I was like, this would never have been anything I could only imagine. Like just, I don't know, 2 years ago. It does feel like we have all the optimism going for us, and it's kind of ours to lose.
The leftist scene is also sorry to interrupt you. I was trying to explain this to friends of mine who are Democrats. I'm like, it's not just a political problem, but that's a grave one. It is a social and branding problem. Democrats are seen as hysterical. They'll run to HR if you use the wrong pronoun. They're obsessed with culture stuff. They want all your kids to be trans. It is such a monument of insanity that I wouldn't if you task me with Meghan fix this. I actually don't know where I would start because it's such a mess. But I do know that David Hogg is not the answer, and that tells me you haven't learned any lessons.
When he announced he was running, I laughed. When he won, I was like, wait a second, you guys are this is your outreach. And even his Cam Kaczynski, whatever that kid's name is, who was in the school, he was like, are you guys crazy?
They've learned no lessons. If you think a gun grabbing, pronoun bio, 24-year-old progressive who's, respect is horrific. He's famous because of a horrific tragedy. It's just so, your problem is many things, but most of it is also men in America don't like you or trust you because they think you're weird. And it's like, if you don't have like, I guess the chair, I don't know anything about him, but I guess he's like maybe an image of like a more working everyman. But I just can't believe, I honestly thought it was like a parody when they nominated him for vice.
Right. But the problem with their idea of working everyman is it's like somebody in like working class face. Like it is like, it's not like, it's like
cosplay.
It's cosplay.
Totally.
Yeah. It's cosplay, and it's obvious cosplay, and they just can't, it's so endemic that it's so problematic. And it's such a big turnoff to both young people and men, and young people who, by the way, who had their formative lives changed by COVID. Gen Z is two different generations, the before and after COVID generation. Meghan McCain, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being on. So Citizen McCain is your podcast. I highly recommend it. I listen every single week.
Way to come back soon.
Yeah, you let me know. It's a fun podcast. They talk about everything from culture to being moms to politics.
I'm such a shit talker.
No, it's so, it's much more gossipy than this podcast is, but it's good. It's good. And then your Substack is meganmccain.substack.com. I highly recommend everyone just check out her podcast and look at her Substack. It's so good. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm so happy for your new podcast, and I can't wait to see you in DC soon.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of A Numbers Game with Ryan Girdusky. Please like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next week. I'll see you there.